Georgia dominated Texas in that game for most of it. We'll talk about the call, I'm sure, in the third quarter. But Blaine, I want to start with you on this one. What surprised you the most about that Georgia-Texas game yesterday overall?
To be honest with you, nothing. It kind of went exactly how I thought it would and how I said on this show. If there's going to be anything, it's ETN in the run game. Finished with 90 yards, was somewhat productive in big moments. What do we talk about this Georgia team walking into this game? Is like we haven't seen Georgia beat Georgia, and the way they won is the scariest thing. Carson Beck played to mid to below mediocre, 3 interceptions. This is what a Georgia front seven is what we're used to seeing. Absolutely not only getting in the backfield, but getting to Quinn Ewers early and often. If you get to him early, he kind of struggles and gets rattled throughout the day. So, if you look at where field position started this game, Georgia usually started a drive on the Texas 32. That's how you win football games like this, and that's defense. And we thought Kirby Smart, the big thing, you saw the post-game press conference. Everybody was getting some hell. David, me and you didn't pick him. Nobody picked him. And when Kirby Smart can get his players to believe this, that's when they're the most dangerous.
Yeah, and kudos to you guys for picking Georgia and Jeff.
Yeah, Fox. Not you, Jake. Jake didn't pick him. He picked Texas, everybody. Point and laugh.
So, yeah, I picked Illinois, so let me tell you about a game.
That's true.
No, it's to me, this was reverse Clemson for Georgia, Coney. That's what it looked like to me. Georgia offensively, and it was because of the field position. It was because of the ability to create turnovers and turning the ball right back over. But they kind of jumped them, right? And I had a feeling, I said during the week, I wouldn't be surprised if Georgia punches first. But when you look at this game physically, I said all week, this isn't the Georgia team that we've seen the past, 3 years. And I still don't think it is. I don't think the roster is as good. But this year in college football, you may not need a roster that is that good to win the national championship if your offensive line is going to play like this, which, again, they haven't shown this all year. But this is what makes coaching so difficult, trying to get your guys to play to an elite level every single weekend, David, because Georgia pushed Texas around the way we thought Texas was now going to push Georgia around.
Guys, it cannot be overstated what we watched last night. Kirby Smart led the Georgia Bulldogs on the road in Austin, Texas, the same Georgia team that already has a loss to Alabama, the same Georgia team that looked mediocre against Kentucky and Mississippi State, led them on the road and beat the number 1 team in the country in Texas so thoroughly that they pulled Quinn Ewers out of the football game at one point and did all that with their own quarterback, Carson Beck, throwing 3 interceptions. So we talked about it all week that Kirby Smart was going to come in with the best possible game plan that anyone could against Texas. The only question was, is that good enough to win the game? Is that good enough to keep it close? Or can you keep it close for a little bit like Clemson did against Georgia, but then Texas blows you out later? That was the only question. We talked about it for week after week after week. Every time that Texas comes up, and Blaine, I've heard you say a number of times, if you want to beat the Longhorns, you have to get to Quinn Ewers or whoever the quarterback is. They ended up going to Arch Manning for a little bit right before halftime. If you can get to Quinn Ewers, you have a chance. If he stays clean and upright in the pocket, Texas is going to blow you out. Well, boy, did Georgia get to him. Everything about this game to me is about Georgia on defense. The disguised pressures, the disguised coverages, bluffing man, dropping back into zone. That led to a Quinn Ewers interception. Fantastic game plan. And look, I think the entire SEC has been reset, and now with Alabama getting 2 losses, Georgia's right back in the conversation to make the conference championship.
Well, and Blaine, Texas couldn't run the ball. And David's right. What Georgia did from showing looks and bluffing, showing looks and going, and you're able to do that when it's 3rd and 9 the whole game. That's where Texas, it seemed like they stayed outside of the third quarter. Everything was in 3rd and 9. Because Georgia in that front 7, especially at the linebacker position, I thought the linebackers played the best game that they've played at Georgia, this group, in this game, and they had to. Wisner had 52 yards on 15 carries, but it wasn't like they were busting anything or Texas could never get on schedule, and it just seemed like the gravity was with Georgia. And then you saw the Georgia run game really start to eat at Texas a little bit. And that's what set the tone. And Carson Beck, again, 23 or 41, 175 and 3 picks. You weren't great, but you didn't have to be great when you were the team that could run the ball and you were the team that could stop the run. Hell, the only thing Texas really had going for them was Wingo every now and then, and that big white troll they got at Gunnar Helmet tight end.
Yeah, and we've said it on this show, and we'll say it repeatedly. As fancy as these offensive looks when it comes to Sark, Lane Kiffin, Josh Heupel, the way the car goes is by running the football. That's what they want. That's the only thing that really opens up this offense for later. And I mean, guys, we talked about it with Texas. I mean, there's nobody on that schedule yet. The more we say Michigan play football, that really has impressed us. So this was Texas's first test. From an athletic standpoint, from guys running around who can look like Texas. And the scariest about the thing about this game that at least I'm coming out with is Georgia still hadn't played a complete football game yet. Georgia haven't played four quarters offense, defense meshing together yet, and they're still beating teams like this. So that's the scariest thing. The message is that Georgia, even with this type of win, a dominating win, with your offense playing that bad, they still haven't played a complete game yet.
David, does that give you pause to make you think, hey, this Georgia team could possibly end up being dominant, being the dominant one in college football if they're able to put it together as we get into this stretch run? We hear this term in college basketball all the time. You know, you want to get hot at the right time. You know, if Georgia can put this thing together, man, I mean, I'm looking around the rest of college football. I know Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, what's going on in the Big Ten, but that looked like old Georgia up front yesterday, and old Georgia wins rings.
Yeah, I just looking around the landscape of college football right now, I don't know if I see a team that can just dominate every single opponent. Now, I mean, we're going to get a bigger sample size on Oregon for sure, and they're unbeaten, and there's a couple undefeated teams. But what surprised me yesterday was Georgia's ability to win a football game like that with their offense playing so bad, or specifically Carson Beck. I really thought if Georgia wins this game, the defense would play the way they did, and Carson Beck would come in and play really good. Carson Beck would play an entire 4 quarters like we saw him in the second half against Alabama. That's not what happened, guys. I mean, he's 23 of 41. That's already a lot of times throwing the football after 49 attempts against Mississippi State, 175 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and Georgia was up 23-0 and won 30-15. That's truly incredible. So, look, again, like I said, I think they're back in position to be able to win the conference, which is truly incredible where we've come from the last few weeks. But I do want to talk to you guys about the second half of this football game. Multiple targeting penalties on Georgia. I specifically want to talk about the second one. People around the country seem split on it somehow about lowering your head. Look, to me, it looked like a form tackle. I think the game of football is being ruined by targeting. But even the bigger issue was the pass interference, which to me was not pass interference, so it was the wrong call. But all of a sudden, fans start throwing beer cans down on the field. Sark tells them to stop, and all of a sudden, the call gets reversed. I don't think we can overstate how big of a moment that was for college football moving forward as a precedent. I have to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah, you know, I'll get to the targeting in a second. As far as the pass interference that was against Texas, that then wasn't against Texas, I've seen calls get reversed before. Obviously, I've seen plays that are reviewable plays get reversed. I've never seen a call that's a non-reviewable play get reversed like that. Now, again, the timeline and the chronology of it is the most important part. Without fans, and we talk about this all the time, and when we're talking about NIL, and we'll make like the example of the law in the United States is precedent, right? Like what sets precedent. We had a call in a big game, in the biggest game of the year, right up to this point, pretty much. You could argue Alabama, Georgia before, but it's right there. Had a call in a game that people did not like. So they threw beer bottles and water bottles and loaded up a whole end zone full of them, to the point where the head coach of that team had to run over there and tell everybody to stop, and the refs paused the game. And during that pause, they get together and discuss overturning the pass interference that ended up in a turnover that got Texas in scoring position, which therefore made the game a one score game. I've never seen that before in my life. I have watched as much football as a 34-year-old man could have watched. I've seen plays overturned. David, I've never seen a play or a call get overturned after a delay in the game because people were throwing bottles on the field. Even if you wanted to change the call, even if the ref in the discussion said, man, I screwed that up, that wasn't pass interference, I don't think you can change that call, at least the way the chronology works and the way that the function of the officials and the mechanics of the officials. I think it was an embarrassment to college football, even though it was definitely not pass interference.
So, Blaine, is there any thinking at all here where the referees were already getting together before beer bottles are coming down and saying, hey, I didn't see pass interference on that call, and we were distracted from that and missed that? Or is it as clear cut as, man, they really got nervous because the fans started throwing stuff on the field and changed the call?
Well, I think this is exactly what happened. Okay. Obviously not pass interference.
Okay.
We can all agree on that.
True.
I think they started throwing bottles. Okay. I think somebody in an important place saw that it's not pass interference. Someone told, oh boy, that it's not pass interference on the field. They all got together. It's non-reviewable. They basically reviewed it without reviewing it and then changed the call on the field.
So they didn't review it if they didn't technically look at it.
That's what I saw.
Okay, so here's my ultimate question to you guys.
I
then
know what you're gonna ask.
Is it worth getting the call right to set up that sort of precedent? And maybe the answer is yes. I just want to know what you think.
Well,
We want to get calls right. You know,
we want to get calls right. The thing that worries me is that I sit here and say, yes, I want to get that call right. Make pass interference a reviewable play. See, but then that opens up a can of worms, and now games are going to be 8 hours.
they tried that in the NFL.
Yeah, like they tried it in the NFL.
Can we have a
and it didn't
challenge?
work. Like that? To me, that's the like. Isn't that the way the new UFL is? Like the coach has like a super challenge, right? He can challenge one time, like. You know, if it was pass interference or something like that, I would like that. But as far as
maybe the refs just need to get someone, like to Blaine's point, maybe the refs just need someone to call down there and say, hey, you got that call wrong. The only thing is that needs to happen before you already assess the penalty. And obviously the optics of the fans throwing.
Yes, because you did assess the penalty. You called the penalty out to the world. And then you guys then came together while that craziness was going on with the bottles. As far as targeting, I've sat here and bitched and complained about it. They never called on the offensive guy when they lowered their helmet. Yet Aguero lowers his helmet when an offensive player lowers his helmet, and I get thrown out of the game. And then they say, this is the line that kills me. It's not just to protect the offensive player. It's to protect the defender too. Okay, so why is it never called on the offense when y'all lower the crown of the helmet? It's meant to protect y'all too, right?
Yeah.
I'll never.
I do think that's a serious problem when it comes to targeting. Like, when's the last time you can remember an offensive player getting thrown out of a football from targeting? I saw it yesterday. You could equally thrown that kid out on offense the way you threw that guy out on defense, and it's killing the game. That roughing the passer. There's certain things right now in college football. It's turning into 7-on-7.
Yeah. I mean, that's
what it's turning into.
Last night, I'm yelling at the screen, like, put a flag on them, or better yet, just play two-hand touch. At some point, we either have to commit to playing tackle football or we have to commit to something else.
Yeah, look, it's, you sign the paper, right?
Yeah.
You sign the paper. Nobody's forcing anybody to play. This isn't the Hunger Games.
That's the signature right there?
All right, yeah, they're not running to District 4 and grabbing 3 9-year-olds and telling them to tackle Derrick Henry. Like, that's not how that works.